takes place when he is 39 years old. So we're jumping ahead from diplomatic immunity, where we last saw him in Ekaterin and the Twins. Takes place in a new setting that none of you have seen before, so you can't second guess the plot, darn it. So that'll be fun. It's on the Bain schedule for November 2010. That's a year and 2 months from now. Long time. Yeah, I read this last year at WorldCom, so I have to have something new by then. And I think probably the best way to approach it is just jump into chapter 1 and read till we run out of time. Patience and whatever. Cryoburn, chapter 1. Angels were falling all over the place. Miles blinked, trying to resolve the golden streaks fleeting through his vision into mere retinal flashes, but they stubbornly persisted as tiny, distinct figures, faces dismayed, mouths round. He heard their wavering cries like the whistle of fireworks from far off, the echoes buffeted by hillsides. Ah, terrific. Auditory hallucinations, too. Granted, the vision seemed more dangerous in his current adult state. If he could see things that were not there, it was also quite possible for him to not see things that were there, like stairwells or broken gaps in this corridor floor, or balcony railings. But could he feel those pressing against his chest? Not that he could see anything in this pitch darkness, not even his hands reaching uncertainly before him. His heart was beating too fast, rushing in his ears like muffled surf, his dry mouth gasping. He had to slow down. He scowled at the tumbling angels, peeved. If they were going to glow like that, they might at least illuminate his surroundings for him, like little celestial grab lights. But no, nothing so helpful. He stumbled and his hand banged against something hollow-sounding. Had that bit of wall shifted? He snatched his arms in, wrapping them around himself, trembling. And just cold, yeah, that's it. Which had to be from the power of suggestion, since he was sweating. Hesitantly, he stretched out again and felt along the corridor wall. He began to move forward more slowly, fingers lightly passing over the faint lines and ripples of drawer edges and handle locks, rank after rank of them, stacked high beyond his reach. Behind each drawer face, a frozen corpse, stiff, silent, waiting in mad hope. 100 corpses to every 30 steps or so, thousands more around each corner, hundreds of thousands in this lost labyrinth. No, millions. That part, unfortunately, was not a hallucination. The cryocombs, they called this place, rumored to wind for kilometers beneath the city. The tidy blocks of new mausoleums on the city's western fringe, zoned as the Cryopolis, did not account for all the older facilities scattered around and underneath the town, going back as much as 150 or 200 years, some still operational, some cleared and abandoned. Some abandoned without being cleared. Miles' ears strained, trying to detect a reassuring hum of refrigeration machinery beyond the blood surf and the angels' cries. Now there was a nightmare for him. All those banks of drawers bumping under his fingertips, concealing not frozen hope, but warm, rotting depth. It would be stupid to run. The angels kept sleeping. Miles refused to let what was left of his mind be diverted in an attempt to count them, even by a statistically valid sampling and multiplication method. Miles had done such a back-of-the-napkin rough calculation when he first arrived here on Kibu Danai, just 5 days ago? Seems longer. If the cryocorpses were stacked up along the corridors at a density, on average, of 100 per 10 meters, that made for 10,000 along each kilometer of corridor. 100 kilometers of corridors for every million frozen dead. Therefore, something between 150 and 200 kilometers of cryo corridors tucked around this town somewhere. I am so lost. His hands were scraped and throbbing, his trouser knees torn and damp with blood. There had been crawl spaces and ducts, hadn't there? Yes, what seemed like kilometers of them, too. And more ordinary utility tunnels lit by feeling tubes and not blind with centuries of mortality. His weary legs stumbled and he froze, stopped, once more to be sure of his balance. He wished fiercely for his cane, gone astray in the scuffle earlier. How many hours ago now? He could be using it like a blind man on old Earth, or Barriere's own time of isolation. tapping in front of his feet for those so vividly imagined gaps in the floor. His would-be kidnappers hadn't roughed him up too badly in the botched snatch, relying instead on a hypospray of sedative to keep their captive under control. Too bad it had been in the same class of sedatives to which Miles was violently allergic, or even, judging by his present symptoms, the identical drugs. Expecting a drowsy deadweight, they'd instead found themselves struggling with a maniacal little screaming man. This suggested his snatchers hadn't known everything about him, a somewhat reassuring thought, or even anything about him. You bastards are on the top of Imperial Lord Auditor Miles Vorkosigan's very own ship list now, he's dead. But under what name? Only 5 days on this benighted world, and already total strangers are trying to kill me. Sadly, it wasn't even a record. He wished you knew who they'd been. He wished you were back home in the Barrier Empire, where the dread title of Imperial Auditor actually meant something to people. I wish those wretched angels would stop shrieking at me. Flights of angels, he muttered in experimental incantation, sing me to my rest. The angels declined to form up into a ball like a will-o'-the-wisp and lead him onward out of this place. So much for his dim hope that his subconscious had been keeping track of his direction while the rest of his mind was out, and would now produce some neat inspiration in dramatic form. Onward, one foot in front of the other. Wasn't that the grown-up way of solving problems? Surely he ought to be a grown-up at his age. He wondered if he was going in circles. His trailing hand wavered through black air across a narrow cross corridor, made for access to the bank's supporting machinery, which he ignored. Later, another. He'd been suckered into exploring down too many of those already, which is part about when he got so hideously turned around. Go straight, or if his corridor dead-ended, right, as much as possible. That was his new rule. But then his bumping fingers crossed something that was not a bank of cryo drawers, and he stopped abruptly. He felt around without turning, because turning, he discovered, destroyed what little orientation he still possessed. Yes, a door. If only it wasn't another utility closet. If only it was unlocked for a change. Unlocked, yes. Miles hissed through his teeth and pulled. Hinges creaked with corrosion. It seemed to weigh a ton, but the bloody thing moved. He stuck an experimental foot through the gap and felt around. A floor, not a drop, if his senses were blind again. He had nothing with which to prop open the door. He hoped he might find it again if this proved another dead end. Carefully, he knelt on all fours and eased through, feeling in front of him. Not another closet. Stairs, emergency stairs. They seemed to be on a landing in front of the door. To his right, the steps went up, cool and gritty under his sore hand. To his left, down. Which way? He had to run out of up sooner, surely. It was probably a delusion, if a powerful one, that he might go down forever. This maze could not descend to the planet's magma, after all. The heat would thaw the dead. There was a railing, not too wobbly, but he started up on all fours anyway, patting each riser to be sure the step was all there before trusting his weight to it. A reversal of direction, more painful climbing. Another turning, another landing. He tried its door, which was also unlocked, but did not enter it. Not unless or until he ran out of stairs would he let himself be forced back in there with those endless ranks of corpses. He tried to keep count of the flights, but lost track after a few turnings. He heard himself whimpering under his breath in time with the angel ululations, and forced himself to silence.